And welcome to 2024's first Age of Geek podcast. I'm Robert.
I'm Collin.
I'm Steph.
There's people.
I'm Marlee.
And we have with us tonight Blake and James.
We have
Hello.
lovely guests tonight. I'm so excited.
Hello.
Let's hope that 2024 is treating everyone well so far. We had a lovely break time and got to re-energize, recharge, deal with family, enjoy the holidays and all of the other things.
Mint in every sense of the phrase.
But we are back and bringing the geek with us. Let's start off with a little bit of news. It looks like the Netflix MCU series, which means Punisher, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, are all now MCU canon.
What? You got a problem with Iron Fist?
I mean,
No, actually,
don't
you know,
you?
honestly,
Don't?
I mean, everyone does. It's fine.
Did you watch it? I mean, it's
Here's
never
the thing.
Did you watch it, Steph?
I kind
No?
of liked Iron Fist better than Luke Cage.
Can
Get
you
out.
please get rid of Collin?
Oh
Does
my
he have
gosh.
to be here? Please.
I got bored during.
What you got against
Luke
black
Cage.
people, Collin?
I have nothing against black people.
That was the right answer.
Anything with Mahershala Ali is
Oh
all
my
right with
gosh.
me. I like that man.
No, I actually thought that Iron Fist was okay, not great. It would have been nice if Finn Jones had actually, I don't know, studied his martial arts, done his training that he was supposed to do, and he's like, no, I got guys for that.
It's fine.
So yeah,
I'll show up.
Do we think the best MCU on Netflix is
Jessica
The
Jones.
Punisher?
Daredevil.
Oh,
Iron Fist.
Daredevil.
There's contention.
Why am I friends with you people?
And then
And Punisher.
Definitely is.
Punisher's
Daredevil.
too.
does Echo count as this in this realm?
I think they're saying that things within the Echo series kind of branch both ways, going forward and a little bit backward into the Netflix MCU and into the current MCU continuity.
Well, and that's
Well-
why this announcement, I think, came out, is very timely with the release of Echo, which we'll have to talk about here on our show soon.
At some point.
It's good. I'm excited to talk about it. But
Okay, so I want to know something then. Side tangent, sorry. Mahershala Ali.
We never do those.
oh, we're
he's
back
in,
on that.
He's in Luke Cage,
Yes.
okay?
Mhm.
Which is now MCU canon, right?
Okay, I know where you're going with this, and I can answer this. They've done it
But he's
before.
also Blade.
They've done it. Well, not yet.
So yeah, what other examples have they done this with?
Gemma Chan.
I
She
don't
was
know who that
is.
Minerva in Captain Marvel. The other female member of the Star Force that Carol was a member of before coming to Earth.
Okay.
And she's also Cersei in the Eternals.
Okay. All right.
We
come full circle.
we liked Eternals. We'll
I
admit
liked
that.
Eternals too.
movie.
You
But
like
yeah,
it?
so it's not the
I'm
first
sorry.
time that they've brought somebody back in a different role. So
I'm
I
not
think-
saying they can't. I was just curious if they've done it yet. So
this is not the first time, so it's okay.
yeah,
Thanks,
I
Kevin
don't
Feige.
care.
They're just doppelgangers. That's all they are.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Also, Netflix related. While we were away, Netflix released both a trailer and gave a release date for the new Masters of the Universe Revolution, which follows up Masters of the Universe Revelation. And in it, we find that Adam is weighing the decision of having to become king or remain He-Man. And spoiler alert, in the trailer, King Randor is dying, will die. So Adam is next up for the throne. But we also get to see a couple of villains like Hordak. I cannot remember what the two-headed character's name is. And I don't think they gave his name in
I don't
this.
think any of us can help you with that.
Yeah, that's okay. But we do also see Tila moving forward as the sorceress and embracing her heritage as the daughter of the sorceress. So this should be kind of fun, and that kicks off on the 25th. So in like a week and a half. If you have not watched the previous series on Netflix, it is not the 80s cartoon by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a direct continuation of it. And produced by Kevin Smith, and it is pretty fantastic.
I do love me some Kevin Smith.
Yeah, it's seriously, if you haven't watched it, give it a shot. It's Netflix has done a good job with revamping a couple of older properties because they did Voltron, and they went a completely different direction than the 80s anime series, and it was really well done. And this, somebody who was phasing out of that, Masters didn't quite hit that chord for me growing up. I was aware of it. It was also decent background noise, but this series was really good, and not necessarily for kids. So there's that. Steph, you mentioned that you had a bit of gaming news that you wanted to talk about.
Gaming
I do.
adjacent.
Gaming
adjacent,
adjacent. I got
yes.
scolded.
Game.
Okay. Well, they announced some of the new cast for The Last of Us season 2, highly anticipated. And I think it's really interesting because if you know anything about the voice actress who did Abby in The Last of Us Part 2, she was bullied off of social media. It was a really bad situation because of actions a character she did, what the character did in the video game.
That never happens in the nerd community. What are you talking about?
Especially not with like females.
Male characters, yeah.
Women, yeah.
Laura
So-
Bailey.
So yeah.
Ashley Johnson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sorry. I meant who Steph is talking about is Laura Bailey.
So Caitlin Deaver was announced for Abby, which is she's gonna be, she's as big of a role as Ellie is in Part 2.
What else has she been in?
She has also been she was in Booksmart, and she was fantastic in Booksmart.
What else has she been in that I know?
Unbelievable. That's about it that I know.
Cool.
I think she's a young girl. She's small, and it's funny because Abby's known for being a big woman, muscly woman.
She's very
and so
big
everyone
and
is
tough.
talking about how she's going to need to bulk up to play this role. So they've announced a couple other characters.
Who's playing Joel?
They announced young Mazzino as Jesse and Isabella Marcid as Dina. But I think that this Abby role is going to be the biggest one announcement to be made, and it's going to be maybe the most controversial, just because of, if you know what happens in Part 2, it's big stuff.
Yeah.
I love that all you PlayStation people are like, oh yeah. And I'm like, that's great.
Let me ask you, Robert, how do you feel about golf?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Stop.
Well, no. I actually have an answer for this. Over Christmas, we got a VR headset, and I've just recently picked up Walkabout Golf for the VR headset, and I've been playing mini golf kind of like every night for the past week. So I think it's great. Thank you for asking, Blake.
Golf,
Okay.
mini golf. Same
Perfect.
thing,
You're
it's
gonna
fine.
love Part 2. It's great.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
great.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting with Caitlin, because I'm not used to her in like super strong roles.
She doesn't have to, push tanks around.
Yeah.
I have a theory, and it's not a spoiler. It's just more so that I think, because they've already said that it's very likely that season 2 of The Last of Us it's going to likely be what
Last
happens
of It?
in part
Yeah.
2 of the game. It's going to be like split into multiple seasons.
Right.
So my theory, especially with the actresses Bella Ramsey and Caitlin Deaver, is that her
Mhm.
name? looking and being so young, I kind of feel like they're going to focus on kind of like some of the other stuff that happens in the story when they're like younger, because there is a time jump. Sorry, Robert, if
Yeah,
that's a
I could
spoiler.
see
There is
that.
a bit of a
Oh.
time jump,
Okay.
but they also do a bunch of flashbacks. So I kind of have a theory they're going to focus on like the earlier stuff and then give those actresses maybe a little more time to age. And then maybe season 3 will be stuff that happens later in part 2. That's
Well,
my theory.
And in the game, isn't it like a 5-year time jump?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I
yeah,
think
5 or
that-
6 years. Yeah.
I feel like that's what they were saying, like in the commentaries after the show. Like if you watch the behind the scenes stuff on the show, it's something that they mentioned that they were going to explore that in season 2. So it's not
Yeah.
going to be the stuff you see in the game right away.
Right. So yeah, that's what I mean. I think they're gonna maybe focus on them in those first few years, like after the events of part 1,
Right.
instead of jumping
Well,
ahead.
The casting in season 1 was spectacular. In fact, Nick Offerman and Stormy
Reed? No,
Reed.
not
Mhm.
Reed.
Excuse me.
Is that his name?
Well,
Storm. No, you're thinking of Murray Abram, who played Frank's partner, but she's like Stormy Reed, who played
Ellie's girlfriend.
yeah.
Yes.
Nick Offerman won
Oh, yeah.
a Golden Globe for his role, wasn't it? One award. I can't remember specific. And I know Stormy Reed was nominated. I don't know if she took home the award. But and then we have Pedro and Bella. Like their casting has been fantastic. So they must have a vision. And after seeing season 1, I'll trust them.
I have a question. When are they going to remaster season 1
Oh my
with
gosh.
better visuals and better music? And I don't know, so I can relive the dream.
Blake's a hater of The Last of Us. But to be fair, they did just remaster part 2, and it's only been out for like 3 years.
Which is
But
just
They're also bringing in
insane.
new stuff. So it's not just like that. And it's not, you don't have to pay for a full game. It's unless if you don't already own it. But if you already own it, it's a $10 upgrade. So it's really not that big a deal, you guys.
Yeah.
Blake. Anyways, let's move on.
Not to call anyone
Well,
out.
I've got one more piece of Star Wars news.
Ah,
Well, it's not really great or exciting. So we all know there's the new Rey movie coming.
we do?
Star Wars New Jedi Order.
Some of us do,
they
apparently.
announced it.
I thought that was like fan made. This is
No,
real?
It is
This
a
is
real
real.
thing.
It is real.
Well, it's not
Better
real
not be
yet.
directed
It
by a
will be
woman.
real.
It is being directed by a woman.
Oh my God, women don't even like Star Wars.
Well,
Oh, let's
here's
that's
the
another
thing.
tangent we'll have to
So,
take. That's a topic we'll take on
I'm
for another
gonna-
show.
I'm gonna butcher this name, and I apologize. It's being directed by Charmin Obad Chinoy. Her background is she's a Canadian Pakistani journalist and filmmaker. However, the films that she's made and directed are mostly animation or documentary films. She's never done any kind of high budget film or any kind of action film outside of her animated movies that she's done.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is a real question. I'm not being cheeky.
Yeah.
Is this a trilogy that they're doing, or is it just like a one movie?
They
Or do
have
we
not
not do it?
specified. I assume it's the one, and then they'll see how it does.
Because
But I'm just
regardless, if it becomes a trilogy, I want her to direct all of them. I don't
So,
need to go
yeah.
back and forth to like 7 different people.
here's the thing.
Because I think
If-
that's what
if
messed it all up.
If it bombs, they're not gonna
Yeah.
do anymore. And I mean, I don't know. This kind of seems like setting up to fail. And Kathleen Kennedy doesn't really have much room for much more failure from
Disney.
the last trilogy. Like Disney's gonna eventually just put Dave Filoni over in the president seat and just call it is how I feel. But I'm not excited for the film. I don't think
Well, they
Okay.
have like 2 years to make it. I don't think they have plan on having it come out till 2026.
Yeah. Hopefully
they
it's
have a
one of
while.
those that they decide, oh, this isn't the right director, and then change it like they did with.
Well, and I feel like when they announced it with the plan of it being a trilogy, because I think that's what they're planning on doing for because they want to do the Old Republic movies, and that's going to be a trilogy, and they want this Rey thing. They want it to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
But again, it just depends on how it does in the box office.
Yep.
Didn't Ray already have her own trilogy?
Kind of.
She did.
That was
and
still like the
didn't.
Skywalker saga, right?
Yeah.
It was wrapping up the Skywalker saga, but now, I mean,
But she's
said
Rey
at the end of the
Skywalker.
movie that she's a Skywalker.
Spoiler.
So,
I haven't
Listen,
seen
it's
it
been
yet.
out long enough.
so sorry.
I haven't
So
seen it
sorry
yet.
that you guys still have not seen The Last Jedi.
No, the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
We actually haven't seen the last.
Uh-huh.
I've
the-
seen The Last
That's why
Jedi. I haven't seen The Rise of
Okay.
Skywalker.
Is that the last of the new trilogy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I
But
haven't.
the fact that the movie's called Rise of Skywalker
You kind of
is kind
assume.
of a spoiler in itself.
I just
No,
hope
it's not. If you think of it this way, if they had taken a slightly different tack and made it where Skywalker was a title and not a surname, so that somebody who is basically a Jedi guardian or sentinel was considered a Skywalker or was given the title of Skywalker, they could have done it that way. Instead,
like
we got
that way
the
more.
movie that we got, which I have opinions about. There we go. And
all I know is I want Kylo Ren and Rey to end up together.
Oh, Raylo forever.
I'm such a Star Wars troll, just so everyone knows. I also support women directors.
Why are those two things synonymous?
Because I said the thing at the beginning of this whole part.
I'm a troll
Well,
and I support women.
One of the weird things too, I was watching an interview with this director, and in it she's saying how it's about time that they put a female in the seat of directing Star Wars.
she's not.
And
wrong.
I was like, you're not the first female to direct Star Wars, though. There have been several of the Mandalorian and Ahsoka episodes that were directed,
but not
by
feature.
not a
length.
feature film.
not a feature
No,
film,
wait a minute.
but
Who directed Rogue One?
What Collin is trying to say is you can have the lower properties.
That's
These
not
are
what I
feature
was
films
saying.
Do not
for
reflect
the men.
everyone
Not
of Age
what
of
I
Geek
was
Media.
saying. No. Oh my gosh. Who directed Rogue One? Gareth Edwards. A
Yeah.
dude.
I think that's a
Um,
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct. It is.
Yeah. What I was going to say though is so funny you brought up the whole Skywalker thing. So in the Thrawn books, there are actually people who can pass through like space and stuff in their. It's kind of like in their dreams, but they call them Skywalkers.
Today I learned.
Yeah,
Are those books good? I've heard they're really good.
I love them.
They're fantastic.
Like even the older ones, they're really good. All the Heir to the Empire stuff, and then going into the post Disney Thrawn books, they're really good.
Audible is always telling me to listen to them, so
Oh yeah, I have all of them on Audible.
Something
I'll
else
have
that
to check
people
them out someday.
so something else people should listen to is our take on Blue Beetle.
Hey!
Oh,
I see what
wait,
you did
that's
there.
right
Good
now.
transition.
What a good segue.
Is he a Jedi?
In a matter of speaking.
Master Robert.
So Blue Beetle. It was one of the last of the DCEU films. It kind of falls before Aquaman, the most recent Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, and was considered at one point to be a bridge movie between the Snyderverse and the James Gunn Gods and Monsters saga. So, who saw it? What'd you think? Who knows? I'm sorry, let's go back even further than that. Who knew about Blue Beetle before this movie, outside of James?
I knew
I
from
had heard
an
the name.
animated cartoon. That was it.
Okay. Marlee's like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm just not gonna say anything.
I would appreciate not a lengthy history, but a brief history of the character, because I knew of him, but he is a DC property that I am very unfamiliar with.
So
I know.
he is a DC legacy character. He is the third Blue Beetle that we know of, the first being Dan Garrett, the second being Ted Cord, who had a fairly notable run in the 80s and 90s as part of Justice League International, and was the partner of Booster Gold. They also had a couple of miniseries, Blue and Gold.
Have they ever thought about doing a Booster Gold movie?
They've thought about doing a Booster Gold TV series at one point, I believe. But Booster Gold actually has appeared on
Wasn't he in
two
Smallville?
shows. He was on Smallville. He was also in one other DC live action show he appeared in. I can't remember what it is now. But on Smallville, he was played by Eric Martsolf, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have Jamie Reyes as the most recent incarnation of the Blue Beetle, whose powers come from a bonding with an alien symbiote. The character has appeared in Young Justice Outsiders on HBO Max. I think he also appeared in. No, he did not appear on Teen Titans, but I think that he appeared in a couple of episodes of Teen Titans Go.
And he was in Batman Bold and the Brave.
And he had a great appearance voiced by Will Friedle on Batman Brave and the Bold.
Oh,
That one.
So
Interesting.
I totally forgot that Donald Faison, or is that how you say his name? Faison acted him in Arrowverse 7th season.
There you go.
That's right.
So question, when did the most recent incarnation get
Appear?
introduced? Yeah, roughly. I don't need like the day.
Would've
2005, I believe.
Sweet.
Sounds about right.
Because that was like the whole Infinite Crisis. Is that when he came in?
No, he would have been 50. If was, no, it would have been
Like he
Infinite
got his own
Crisis.
stuff in 52.
Right, but Infinite Crisis would have been right after that. Would have been when he would have been introduced with the Teen Titans, or Young Justice, as they were running that line,
Yeah, well,
the comic line.
And I think didn't he show up in the Young Justice show before Outsiders? Was he on the Cartoon Network one?
He was on Justice League versus Teen Titans.
Right, but Young
Great
Justice
episode.
had him. I don't think it was second season. No, sorry, they did have him second season because it was before they did Outsiders. So
Because I know
introduced him.
they had him in the PlayStation game, which
Yes.
came out after like the third season.
Right.
Or second season.
So they had him.
Who
after
did they
the-
have play Pony Boy in that version? And Soda Pop.
That is my
Day
sign.
golden, Steph.
Oh,
Day
Steph.
golden.
So we have the sassy corner over here.
That
But-
doesn't sound like us.
Oh, it sounds totally like you. So we have this movie that introduces Jaime Reyes as a young man in Palmyra City, Texas, one of DC's famous DC only towns.
Okay.
And he's, just a young man graduating college, trying to find his way in the world. And much like another young man in New York who was bitten by another insect, he winds up getting bitten by an insect and bonded to it, and superpowers. Who knew?
Hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue. And hijinks at the hands of Susan Sarandon at her scene chewing best.
Oh. That's a hot take.
I was being generous.
So look, I really like some aspects of this movie. I really like how family oriented it was.
Yes.
I really loved the Hispanic and Latino like representation in it. I thought that's not something we see very often in superhero movies. I liked most of the actors. But there were just
Who
some
did you
big
not like?
problems.
Who did you not like?
Okay, I didn't like Susan. Okay, so for Susan Sarandon being
Mhm.
such a great actress, they like wasted her. Some of the lines that they gave her, like when they're trying to remove Blue Beetle from Jaime, especially she had just such wasted poor lines that were they just took me out of it.
I feel like she wasn't very intimidating either.
She was like bitchy at first and then just wasn't, and then wasn't anything more than that.
Yeah, because I made the same comment to my husband Jason, because he's like, this lady's not that scary. And I'm like, well, usually like Susan Sarandon, I'm like, she's a really good actress. She's known for a lot of really major roles and all that. And this is not, she is not good for this role. That was my opinion.
And we're torn about the grandma, if she was great or if she was too much.
Little column A, little column B.
As most Latino grandmothers are.
All right, there we go.
Column B.
There we go.
Are you telling us that your grandmother led a revolution, James?
My grandmother probably would say things like that, but that was because of the Alzheimer's, and she just believed she was anybody. So she is the reason that Mexico is Mexico. So
all right.
So I have one quick question, and I want to clear it up. Where did it fall then, this movie, in terms of the Snyderverse or the James Gunniverse?
Snyderverse.
It is.
It would be considered Snyderverse, but they're considering this is one of the transitional things that this movie was slated to be released after the shakeup last year at Warner Brothers that brought James Gunn and David Zaslav into the picture.
So would it be the Gunderverse?
Sure.
So it's just its own
Collin,
thing.
can we just mute the bottom corner?
Yeah, let me work on that for you. James Gunn did come out and say on his Instagram that what was it?
they said he'd be back in that Blue Beetle role.
Yep.
For the DCU.
He said, quote, I can't wait for audiences to meet Jamie Reyes, who will be an amazing part of the DCU going forward.
Okay, well, that's great. But this is one of those on the bubble properties, much like Shazam and Aquaman, going forward out of the Snyderverse into the Gunlav, Zaz era, whatever you want to call it, the current regime at Warner Brothers. And James Gunn was also notorious for saying, we're not sure which characters or which actors will continue in which roles going forward, one of which being Jason Momoa as Aquaman, because it was rumored that after his turn as Aquaman in Aquaman 2, that he is up for Lobo. So,
yes. Yeah.
So
has anyone seen Aquaman 2?
No. I'm waiting for
that.
I mean, like some people have.
I don't think so.
None of us.
I don't know.
But
I much
I
rather
wouldn't be so
spend
sure.
I rather spend my weekends watching the entire extended cuts of Lord of the Rings.
There's many things that I would rather do than go see Aquaman 2. And that is one of them, yes.
So
Me and Blake may have done that. It's fine.
13 hours of heaven. That's
Beautiful.
what I call it.
anyways,
Wow.
what did everyone else think of this movie?
Marlee, let's start with you, because you seem like you have things that you want to say, but you're not sure how to say.
I mean, you're not wrong. I don't know how to say it. So I literally watched this movie like just this afternoon today.
It's fresh.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't my favorite. There were some good moments in it though. Like I thought the action scenes were pretty fun. Like I liked seeing because I know nothing about Blue Beetle. Like before this, I knew nothing. And I liked seeing like his kind of integration with what's the name of what's the name of the suit?
The Scarab.
Like yeah, like
Khadijah, I think.
Kajida.
Oh, yeah.
Kajida.
Kajida. That's right. But like I liked kind of like seeing their interactions as well as the different like abilities that the suit could do, especially like in a given moment. Like that was really cool to see all those different abilities, and I thought the effects were really cool.
Okay, I have a question though. How is like the suit not just a copy of Green Lantern?
You mean like in terms of its abilities?
Yes, in terms of abilities. Like I know that it happens in different ways, but it's very similar.
Well, one, he doesn't have to learn martial arts. He's already programmed with fighting combat styles, and so the suit is more driving action than.
Does Hal Jordan know martial arts though?
Well, it depends on which version of Hal Jordan you're looking at.
Are you talking
Does Jon
about
Stewart
the
know
green?
martial arts?
Are you talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, this is what I was saying. Depends on which one you're looking at. Because like with Hal Jordan and modern Hal Jordan as opposed to the original way they did it. Hal Jordan was in the Air Force, so he would have learned some combat training. Jon Stewart was a Marine before becoming a Green Lantern. So
And they're pretty
also
lame.
that's a hot take. So there are.
I would agree with you. There are similarities between their abilities and their powers.
Like even the thing that the sister got was very Green Lantern-esque. With the fist and the fisting.
Yeah, and creating a construct kind of a
exactly.
You gonna be okay, Collin?
I'm trying not to react.
You're doing a bad job of it. Sorry.
Okay. I want to talk about this and their abilities. Okay. Do their abilities translate from the different incarnations of Blue Beetle?
No.
Okay, so explain first generation, second generation, and then third where we are now.
Wow,
briefly.
Were,
I want to know.
I'm testing Robert's knowledge.
I legitimately want to, because I feel like this movie has a lot of fan service for people that know this character, and I feel like they do a really good job. They
do a fair job, to be honest. They do a middling job. Dan Garrett, the original person who found the Scarab, but did not use it in that way. Although they said that he did in the movie, he didn't. The character was originally not a DC property, but a property that they acquired from Charlton Comics in the I think 50s. So he was basically an adventurer whose costume was basically a blue suit with red trim, goes around punching bad guys. Ted Cord, who was the second Blue Beetle, was a student of Dan Garrett's, but Cord was also really not Lex Luthor intelligent, but moving in that direction. He was a technologist and an inventor, built a company called Cord Industries, which we saw reference to in the movies, and inherited the Scarab, never used it, but developed technology to give him an edge, but he was still basically just a guy running around in a blue suit punching bad guys. He also created the Bug, which was the airship that you saw in the movie, to go from place to place or to ferry members of the Justice League around in certain situations. And then Jaime gets the Scarab, which gives him, I would say it's more Iron Man than Green Lantern.
It's very Iron Man feels for sure.
As far as especially like the later armors where
the
nanotech armors where he can make shields and sonic cannons.
Big Hero 6.
And the AI
sure
like system. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's an AI system, and the Scarabs may be more than an AI.
Yeah, well,
like
especially
the-
with like the symbiote thing, and
Yeah.
that like reminded me of like Venom.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, you've also got to figure time-wise, Venom had been out for about 15 years at this point. Popular character is not just a villain, but as an anti-hero by the time they rolled out this incarnation of Blue Beetle in the comics. So, yeah, this is a case of DC going, they've got a thing over there that works pretty well. We could kind of do something similar with a different spin on it. So the Scarab gives Jaime his abilities. However, its overwhelming directive is to protect its wearer. So that's why you see a lot of defensive capabilities and protective capabilities in the suit in the movie. That is true to the comic origin, where if Jaime is originally learning to use his powers and coming to harm, the suit just kind of takes over and goes, nope, you're out of here, or we're going to do this to defend you.
Which is also very parallel to Venom, a parasite needing to keep its host alive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and even like you could see as the movie was going along that, and the more time that Jaime spent with Kajita, I'm like, I already forgot it. I'm
Nope,
sorry.
you're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah. The more time that they like spent together, the more like she listened to him too. Like even like there was that point where there were like all the soldiers around, and he's like, I don't want to kill. Like I want to stop them. I do want to. I agree. Like let's stop the threat, but I don't want to kill. And so she like finally like listened to him and like helped him with that. So, but in the beginning, like when he first put on the suit, she was like, stop the threat. So like you could kind of see that relationship develop a little bit more too.
And they also did a really good job of showing Jaime's interactions with the suit and his problems with the suit, especially early on. In the second season of Young Justice, with the Reach, where we discover where the Scarabs came from, at least in that continuity. But it does give you a pretty solid background of where the Scarabs come from, and there were more than one.
Would you say this is more, the suit's more an extraterrestrial
Yes.
than an AI?
Yes. I think that the movie was fun. This movie had something that had been lacking for me from DC movies for at least 3 years, and that was heart. Watching this movie, it reminded me a lot of the first Shazam movie, which is another kid gets superpowers movie, but in a different direction. It had a different kind of heart, where Billy was trying to find his family. Jaime already had a family, and you could see parallels in learning to deal with your family and whatever issues you're dealing with outside of their influence. But they presented him as a likable person who's just trying to cope with the curves that life was throwing him. And he's just a guy who's like, I just want to, exist and be able to pull my weight, basically. And then superpowers, go figure. And then bad guys, go figure. I felt that this could have been a good introduction to a younger superset for the DCEU, if things hadn't gone quite as sideways as they did with Snyder's interpretation of I need to deconstruct heroes again, which I think was his big mistake, because he'd already done that with Watchmen. And when you see the Justice League, you don't want to go, what makes them tick? How can we break them down to their worst moments and then bring them back up, which was Snyder's 7-movie intent. And I'm like, 7 movies is too long for that.
Right. I want to get everyone else's opinions on the movie, but I do want to come back to that idea of why we can't seem to get these new characters off the ground, and we just get reiterations of Batman and the Joker over and over and over again.
Money.
Okay. But so yeah, I do think that there's a part of that with this story, because it could have been really awesome, to jumpstart a new character.
Mhm.
And I don't think it did that as well as it could have.
Well, think of it something else that this did that hadn't been done in the DCU in any version of it, really. And that is, we're taking you could argue it was done with Aquaman, but I would argue against it for a couple of reasons. We're making a lead character POC and giving you a POC point of view, as opposed to just anybody could be wearing the suit. And I think that was a fantastic step for DC and Warner Brothers at large to go, we have all these wonderful characters with rich backgrounds. Why are we just going Batman, Superman, like you said? Actually, coming off of that, James, going to put you in the spotlight for a moment, and I apologize. No, I don't apologize for this, actually. This is the first time we've really seen a Latin superhero that is not a caricature of Latino life, Hispanic life. How did you feel watching this movie? How did you feel watching this with Joa? Because I'm assuming at some point the two of you have watched this and talked about it.
Anytime that either of us have watched it, it's been together. We've seen the movie 4 or 5 times. Saw it twice in theaters, and then once it got on Max, we watched it a few times after that. Actually, we watched it again last night. And it's really interesting because actually my mom and I were talking about this yesterday. We were at the Radisson the other day doing stuff for work, and somebody came up, one of the salespeople, and was telling her how awesome it is that all my family came together when I injured my leg, and my family's been around me since I broke my leg. My brother was here, then my dad came up, now my mom's here. But just seeing how important they put family in this movie, it's something that's really close to home to a lot of Mexican Americans or Latinos in general. And just seeing how tight-knit the family was. I remember growing up and living in a house with some aunts, uncles, grandparents. It's something that was just normal for us. So it was interesting to see that play out on the big screen in a superhero movie. I think that it's funny going through the different characters, because I could see my family members in those characters. The crazy uncle that shouldn't be good with technology but can take apart a TV and make a robot kind of thing, or the grandmother who you don't know if she fought in the revolution because she had Alzheimer's. But seeing those characters and being able to point out, especially to Joa, be oh yeah, this uncle was like this grandma used to tell me stories like this, to pull things from my life and put it to the characters in the story. It was just something that was really fun. And I think that was why it was a hit for a lot of Latin American audiences. Also, I think the more I think about it, it had an 80s vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something that it's the colors of the 80s matched most Latin American homes.
Okay.
You see the color palette in the Reyes home with the walls that are pink, red, green, all different colors. That was my house growing up. Nothing matched. Everything was a different color. But the 80s vibe, I think, is what sold the movie for me. They weren't trying to they weren't trying to modernize the aesthetic too much and to do something like Zack Snyder did. They were taking a completely different direction than the Snyderverse. And I think that's why it worked. I think people were tired of Zack Snyder style DC movies. But yeah.
Was the director Latino?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I'm really grateful for that perspective, James, because it's something that I obviously don't have as a connection to, and it really helps me appreciate the film in a different light. Because I'm curious, did it ever cross over for you from like, oh, this is fun representation, to it being a stereotype?
So it's hard for me to make those kind of judgments because in my family, we feed into the stereotypes as jokes.
Right.
So for me, even if it like dabbled into like being something that like, oh, maybe I should be offended by this caricature or this stereotype, I just laughed because I was like, oh my God, I've done that. Like,
Got it.
I've done that as a joke. So for me, it never did that. But like I always say this with anything, like I'm not the spokesperson for
Right.
the community.
Really? That's why we brought you here today. We're like, James.
Well, no, but you Blake, as your question is good, and James, your answer is fantastic. But for me, watching the movie, when they had the family taking Jaime to court for his interview, and the entire family is there, I'm like, okay, that was fine. The truck playing La Cucaracha, I'm just kind of like, was that an overstep? And, I mean, for me, it was like, for a second, it was only for a couple of seconds. I'm like, was that an overstep? Maybe, but it seemed to work with George Lopez's character.
And I will tell you, I have cousins that have that horn in their trucks.
All right.
So it's something that it's like, I've heard it. I've seen Mexicans get out of trucks with so I'm like, so and that's the thing though, is like, you know, not everybody would have that. So, you know, it could be offensive to some people. But for the way I grew up, it was hilarious.
Okay. And to kind of take it in a similar spin, I referred to when it came out, Luke Cage on Netflix. I was like, that's the blackest thing that Marvel has ever done. And then they were like, oh, you think that's it? And then they came out with Black Panther, like, nope, that is the blackest thing they've ever done. And then they went and did Falcon and Winter Soldier. And I'm like, that is the blackest thing. Because they showed different aspects of African-American culture and African-American experience in different ways in each of those, or African experience for Black Panther. But culturally, I think that each of them was significant because it showed a wider audience something that they had not seen before. Or if they'd seen it, it's kind of, we only see this on TV and we don't have to think about it much. But because of the depth of the series and the way that they dove into how much each character's environment was factored into how this person ticked, more so than just watching Boys in the Hood, for example, or the Fresh Prince even. It's like you get that little slice of life where everything is happy and fun, and Fresh Prince not in Boys in the Hood, or the Cosby Show. But with Luke Cage, Black Panther, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, you get to see this is what day to day is like for some of these people. And especially with Luke Cage and Falcon and Winter Soldier, you see that it's not all great. You know, there are things like Sam walks to the bank and can't get a loan, despite the fact that he saved the world. And the guy knows that he did. But he's like, my hands are tied. Sorry.
Because you didn't have a job for 5 years.
Yeah, right. And for me, warts and all, the things that Marvel has done through their series has been great representation. I was hoping to find something like that with the proposed Cyborg movie they were going to do after Justice League that never materialized because of Ray Fisher and Warner Brothers' various issues.
It's like a big heartbreak for mine. I loved Ray Fisher.
Yeah, and it would have been interesting to just to see more of him, let alone as Cyborg. But you know, we don't get to see that now. So with the characterization and whatever caricaturization that was done with this, how do you feel that Hispanic culture, Latino culture was represented in your opinion?
Honestly, I think it's kind of a mix because, like I was saying, like when you have, and you see this in a lot of films directed by Latinos that have to do with Latino culture, is the directors will feed into stereotypes just so the audience gets a joke, or just so the audience seems to thinks they understand something, because they understand the stereotype. And I feel like this movie kind of does the same thing. Especially
did it do it well though?
I think they did. In my opinion, they did. Because for me, like my mom watched a little bit of it last night and she was laughing at some of the jokes that like people probably would have been offended by. Because she was saying the same thing, like, oh, I could see this happening in our family, this. The whole, you were talking about them taking Jaime to Cord Industries and standing outside and playing music and yelling and all that stuff. My high school graduation, my whole family was sitting in one section with air horns and everything. So like it's not something that is a stretch to say that Mexican American families do. And I think about like all like the parties and stuff we would have, and you know, it's it really brought like a lot of memories up for me just watching this, and it wasn't even meant to, but it just did because I was like, oh, I remember when that happened. George Lopez listening to Selena in the car right before the gun chase with Ted's daughter and stuff like that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've walked outside of school and my mom or my uncle is sitting in the car just blasting Selena. You know, it's just those little things that you're like, yeah, that is us. That is our culture. That is our Mexican American heritage. Is embarrassing the hell out of your family.
So I've got a question, and it's going to be, again, sorry, James, kind of a little aimed at you. And I'm going to be showing my ignorance here, but I think that's why podcasts are important, so that we can learn and grow. Something that I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll just let you comment on it essentially, but recently Mario Lopez has been in hot water because he
I don't know if he's been in hot water, but
he's been in the news.
It's been pointed out
that he has a, I guess you could say, quote unquote, white persona that he does on TV. And then he has his more Hispanic Mexican culture that he does off screen. And there was like was it an Instagram post or something where it showed him with his friends and family, and he speaks Spanish, and people were shocked. Right. And I don't know, I felt kind of like Jaime in this movie, I don't want to say they whitewashed him, but his family definitely, I think, loved their heritage. And I think he almost wasn't, I don't want to say he was like resentful of it. Not at all. I think he definitely loves his family and his heritage, but he I don't know, it felt like as the main character,
he wanted to remove
they didn't want to make it so far that like white people wouldn't go see this movie, you know? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, James? Do you feel like there's any connection there?
So I feel like that was part of his character, was to do that, because you hear when he first goes for his test flight in the Beetle suit, he crashes and his mom says, Jaime, are you okay? He says, it's Jamie. So I think a lot of it is, you know, you put yourself in, and this happens to a lot, I think a lot of Latino people when they go to college and stuff like that, they try to not remove that culture from them, but they try to separate it. So they have their home life is more like Mario Lopez, it's more of the traditional Hispanic side, and then in the business end of things, you get this whitewashed version of who they really are. I do the same thing where, except I don't speak Spanish, but I do the same thing in my own life where I have a whitewashed version of me that is more out in the public, and then I have this other side that a lot of people don't see, especially around like Day of the Dead or any celebrations that my family celebrated, like those things that I keep private and stuff like that. A lot of people don't see that, but they see this other version of me. So it's something that like I think happens with a lot of us.
And I would say it's not just Mexican Americans. I think it's minorities in America at large.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of it is you don't want to come off, well, for me it's like you don't feel ashamed of the heritage or anything. You just, there's things you want to keep to yourself and you want to keep private and for your family. Yeah.
And so do you feel like they've represented that well in the movie then, or do you think that they should have leaned more into him being Hispanic?
Honestly, I think the opposite. I think they should have leaned into him more, trying to show that, especially when he was at Cord, whenever he was at Cord, he should have tried to push off that whitewashed version a little bit more.
Interesting.
Just to show that inner struggle that a lot of people of color deal with.
Yeah, for sure. It would have made it more real then. Yeah, interesting.
But I do think they showed his growth from him wanting to maybe remove himself from where he was at the beginning, and then being like, no, family is what is important. And that is something I really did like about this movie, the like interaction he had with his dad post-mortem. It very much did feel like a origin story. Like it gave him the purpose to be the Blue Beetle.
That absolutely, that
and
scene
it's
is
very
that scene is what stands
and
out for me
very
in the
much
film.
like what okay, so instead of like trying to remove myself or like go out of that, I need to lean into this and be
family.
Like, yeah.
And
But it's not just that, but he was also more proud of who his family was and his culture and his heritage, and accepting that. And I think that acceptance is where a lot of the growth for Jaime came.
Well, and like I said, I feel like that would have had a bigger punch had they leaned more into that, trying to separate the two, especially when he was around Jenny, like, or even when he was around like Susan Sarandon's character, like whenever he was around these other people who had a higher authority than him. If they would have showed that struggle a bit more, the end scenes where he's like starting to realize all the stuff about his heritage and culture and stuff would have hit a lot harder and would have had a bigger impact.
I think that was one of the things that they kept it from being a Snyder-esque film, is that it didn't go that dark, so to speak. It kept it lighter, made it more, because this was not something they were looking, the character.
Okay, but was everyone shocked when the dad died? Because I was like, really?
Yes. Really? I
was not ready for it.
Canon event.
Is that a canon
series?
Right?
Well, yes, but does that happen in the comics?
That was like one of the like more touching scees too.
I thought Marlee was about to say, does that happen to Hispanic people?
Oh no.
We die.
Yeah, it does happen. Sorry, Marlee.
No, in the comics.
Occasionally, they are mortal beings.
Listen, I have no grandparents anymore, so Hispanics die.
He broke his leg, Marlee. Come on.
We're not invincible.
I'm gonna name him Blake just from this point on.
Okay, Collin, what was Collin saying?
I was saying that was one of the like most touching parts of the movie, where after the father dies and Jaime is taken, and you have the rest of the family sitting there trying to figure out what to do next. And I think it's the grandma that says it and just says, this isn't the time for us to mourn. It's the time for us to go forward and try to say Jaime and be as a family together
and work together to get him back.
And
yeah. Well, and yeah, it is that was a very touching scene for sure. I just like kind of, what Steph brought up, like it was very unexpected. Like I was not expecting his dad to die. Like that was pretty shocking. I mean, if anything, like maybe have like a heart attack and be, like obviously the ambulance came and they were trying to like resuscitate him and everything. But I'm like, okay, so why did he have to die? Like, I don't know. It was pretty sad. But then of course, like later in the scenes with the
well, and if you remember
near death,
at the beginning of the movie, they talk about how he had a heart attack previous to Jaime coming back.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So actually, when we were in the theater, when they mentioned the heart attack, I kind of slapped Joe on the arm. I was like, dead Mexican walking.
Yeah.
So I kind of expected it.
Well, and then there were like other moments later on when, when they were in the bug ship and they were going to go save Jaime as like
Beetle
a family.
farting?
What?
You talking about the beetle farting?
No.
Oh.
I was going to talk about Uncle Rudy and how he there were a couple different instances where it seemed like he might have like died. Like there, if you guys know what I mean, like there were a couple different instances, and I was kind of like to my husband, I'm like, no, he's not. I'm like, no, he's not gonna die. They already killed off the dad, so there's no way they're gonna kill off the uncle as well. I'm like, no, he's safe. He's safe. Like that would be really sad if they killed off both. But plus, like George Lopez,
amazing.
They're not gonna kill him.
No.
He's the perfect crazy uncle character.
Yeah.
Best line in the movie that for him was Batman's a fascist.
That was so good. That was pretty. Yeah, that was.
If 80% were, Batman would be.
Yeah. No, there were definitely some good moments throughout the movie. Like I liked there's all like pretty much all the good, like the family scenes and all of just like different one-liners or different dialogue that they had together. I feel like that was like some of the best parts of the movie for sure.
And I feel like Zolo, the kid who plays Jaime, was great. I think he had great acting. And that's something else I was talking about why this movie should have worked, and I just don't feel like it did. I mean, I think the cast was pretty solid, and they had an attractive main character, an attractive love interest. They had comedy in it. They had some good action. It just didn't quite hit that mark, That it didn't hit the mark where they're probably going to make a sequel and continue on with this character. Do you think?
They will.
Yeah, they will. I think it's done well enough for them to at least do one more and see if they can carry over or do a little better than this one.
Okay.
And if not, I think you'll at least end up with some kind of Blue Beetle Booster Gold team up.
I think a lot of it's gonna depend on how well James Gunn actually does with this new universe now.
Has he announced what he's doing?
Yes.
James Gunn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
In depth. He has like a 10-year plan.
All
yeah.
right.
The first
You just have to check his Instagram.
They're doing he's got a plan for 10 properties off the bat. The first 5 of which are going to be his Gods and Monsters. Sorry, all the 10 of them are going to be the Gods and Monster series. But it includes Superman Legacy,
Supergirl.
Paradise Lost, which is going to be a pre-Wonder Woman Themyscira story, Creature Commandos, which I think is the first thing out of the gate. I cannot remember what the other 2 properties are.
Supergirl for sure.
Supergirl will move tomorrow.
Fold, right?
Are they doing the same Supergirl from the Flash?
No,
No, it's
this
the
is
Supergirl from the book I bought you.
Yes.
No, because they're
You bought
doing
me a
them-
Wonder Woman book.
No,
I bought you a
all,
Supergirl
like,
Supergirl
book
Woman of
a long
Tomorrow.
time ago.
because they're
Okay.
doing all. This is all them in like younger age,
Yes.
right?
So it's kind of, it is a hard
Kind of
reboot.
young Justice
Not quite.
starting. but-
No, so Clark Kent works at the planet. He has been Superman for a little while, so we're not getting origin, so to speak.
Has a little super hair on his chest.
Sure.
I just really need a scene of Martha Wayne's pearls
Oh my
falling to the
gosh.
ground.
No, you don't.
I need
No,
to
you
relive
don't.
that over
Martha
and over and over.
Why did you
again.
say that name?
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
Where is she? Oh, sorry, that was a different person.
She's on the farm making a strawberry rhubarb pie. Duh. Um, the movie was not perfect. I think that it brought a little more of the lighter side of the DCU back, which was, in my opinion, sorely needed and sorely
It was
missed.
very refreshing
Yes.
because I do like it when they try to not completely stick with just all dark, just dark and broody, and it just, I don't know, it just becomes too much at some point. Like, I mean, we've gotten kind of a taste of that with Marvel, even not necessarily dark in the sense of like just straight up murder and
Well, no, but I mean, they gave us an entire phase of grief and suffering.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like Marvel hasn't done it, but seeing that there is light, and I think that even with a character like Shazam for Fury of the Gods, that movie had great potential and wasted it. I would say it wasted more than this movie did. But with a character that we saw was so light and fun loving or the first movie, to get what we got out of the second movie is just like, eh. So seeing Jaime come out and being, fresh faced kid out of college, has the stars in his eyes, the world is his oyster, and despite things that set him back or that don't go the way he expected, he still has an optimistic outlook, which had been missing from me from the DCU for a long time. And one other point that I forgot to bring up earlier when Blake was asking about his short rundown of the character, Jaime in the books is still in high school.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So,
And they're also in El Paso, not
yeah. Well, they said they made a choice to do it not in El Paso in the movie to give it, to allow for a little more flexibility and not have to break real world city, so to speak.
well. And the funny thing is, when he's dropping down from his orbit, it actually looks like they're in Florida. Like if you look at where they're dropping, it looks like they're by Florida. And it's kind of one of those things because there's the scene when Susan Sarandon's talking to one of the Department of Defense people, and she brings up like the whole thing that he should have a cigar because it's made by real Cubans. So it's like, are they in Florida?
I want to ask about, Susan Sarandon's little lackey that goes and fights for her.
Carapax.
Sorry, what's his name?
Carapax.
Okay. Isn't that an acronym for something?
No,
No, that's the OMAC.
OMAC.
Do you want me to make up an
OMAC.
acronym for it?
OMAC.
No, thank you.
I'll cut that out.
I liked that character a lot. I thought he was a good bad guy. Is he comic canon? Is that a movie character?
The OMACs are. I don't know if
OMACs are,
Carapax is, but the OMAC I think is different in the comics, isn't it?
OMAC is so different in the comics.
Okay. So did that upset you, Robert, that they took that liberty?
No. Yes. They've done a couple of different things with the OMACs in the comics. The original character was a Jack Kirby character in the mid-70s. And there was one OMAC character named Buddy Blank who was enhanced by the Global Protection Agency as one of their agents. and he could call down the power of Brother Eye to give him super strength, enhanced durability, super speed, etc. And OMAC was an acronym for One Man Army Corps.
There we go. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So then fast forward to late 90s, early 2000s, and John Byrne did a 4-issue miniseries reboot of the OMAC character, again with Buddy Blank. And I think he'd been missing his memories for a while. He'd gotten older, and then for some reason has to become, or is forced to become OMAC again, and has to get his memories back for what had happened before. And then after Maxwell Lord had his neck snapped by Wonder Woman. Nope, sorry, it was before that. In Infinite Crisis, in around 2005, the Justice League wiped Batman's memory of an event, of wiping another villain's memory of a crime. Batman didn't agree, so it's just like, nope, you don't remember any of this. This is what got Batman super paranoid in the mid 2000s. So he builds the Brother Eye satellite to watch everything that he can't. Brother Eye develops the OMAC process to create a new version of the One Man Army Corps, but it also doesn't limit it to just one person. It can pick anybody at any time and just beam powers to them. So that's more of what you saw in this movie, was that version of OMAC, which is not my favorite. But yeah, I asked about OMAC, but you get a way too long answer for.
That's my favorite thing about you, Robert, because like, I know I can ask you anything and you will have so much lore and so much knowledge about it, and I love it. It's one of my favorite.
Literally a comic book encyclopedia.
He really is.
I thought you're gonna say that's what I love about you, Robert. You're so concise.
Cool. So I like that kind of backstory with the character. I personally really liked how that character, even off screen, almost had like development, and at the end he was able to reconcile with what he's done
and turn against Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, but he did it because he recognized, like, holy crap, this is also my heritage. You are also a hero. I can be a hero. I don't have to be a villain. Right. And I don't know. I thought, for me, a lot of this movie hit a lot of superhero cliches. It hit a lot of moments that I was like, oh, we're doing that. We're cutting a bus in half again. Like, I've never seen that before. But that moment,
this time it was lengthwise, not sideways.
At least, yeah. but that moment with him having that growth, that was kind of a new, not an unheard of thing in films and storytelling, but I liked that aspect of it, and that was something that resonated with me a lot when he had, especially when they even had like the flashback of his life and where he was pulled from, and how Susan Sarandon like groomed him to be a villain. Like, I don't know, that was really powerful, I thought. And that's one thing I really like about DC, is I think they deal with real world things, even though they don't have real world cities. I think DC doesn't shy away from
dark source material,
not necessarily even dark, but reality. They live in the real world, which is ironic because
we will have this conversation at another time, because I would argue that DC does it selectively, whereas Marvel does it more across the board.
Interesting. Well, we will discuss.
Sure. But thank you.
I have a quick comic book question.
Yes.
And just kind of about the city and stuff too. So Palmyra City, is that comic book?
That is a movie creation.
That's a movie creation. Okay. Because my question was going to be like, are there any other like DC characters that take place in Palmyra City? Because that was kind of a cool looking city.
It was an aesthetic they built specifically for it, going with, like James said, the 80s vibe, the neon everywhere. That was a specific choice that they made for the movie.
Okay.
Well, and I feel like they were trying to also like emphasize that Cord had a lot of involvement in the building of the city.
Yes.
And that it's pretty much just like Cord's own, just because of like how important Cord is to the infrastructure of the city. I think that's another reason why they probably went the route of creating their own city for it.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
said that their inspirations are mainly like Miami's beaches and then some inspo from Metropolis in Central City for aesthetics. The actual filming was in El Paso, Texas.
So there's an El Paso tie because El Paso is where the
yeah.
character in the comics lives.
Mm.
And it'd be really hard, I think, to make a superhero movie in El Paso. I don't know if you guys have ever been down there, but the whole
No.
city is separated by like a mountain.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
Yeah, the other places that was filmed was San Juan and Puerto Rico and then Los Angeles. But the city is based in Texas.
There you go. I would say that if anyone has any interest in learning more about the Jaime Reyes or even the Ted Cord or Dan Garrett comic incarnations of Blue Beetle, check your local comic shops. Tell them that you want to learn more about first, second, or third generation Blue Beetle. They will be happy to point you in the right direction. Also, if you have HBO Max, take a look at Young Justice. The Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle does show up in there. Has a great arc in the second season during the Reach storyline, where he learns things about his Scarab that he didn't know about, and that actually didn't occur in this. That we might see in a sequel if one does come along. But check your local comic shops, check your HBO Max subscription for Young Justice. I would say start with season 1 just to get the backstory of the rest of the team, but season 2 is where Jaime and the Scarab come into play with the team, and they continue throughout, I think, season 3 and 4, not as much in season 5. And with that, thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Blake and James for your input and your questions. And we will see you next time on Age of Geek. Take care.
thanks,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.
This has been an Age of Geek media production.